His career took him from leading Iraq teams on combat operations during the global war on terror to developing and implementing operational plans at the senior levels across some of the most demanding environments in the world. As a Special Forces weapons sergeant and later as a Medical Service Corps officer, Sean deployed 8 times in support of Operation Iraqi Freedom and Operation Inherent Resolve. He led diverse teams through complex missions requiring calm leadership, strategic thinking, and adaptability. His service includes roles as a medical planner for the Combined Joint Special Operations Task Force Syria, and as a company commander reporting directly to the Army Surgeon General. After retiring from the Army in 2023, Sean transitioned to the private sector as a director of production for Prodigy Boats in Georgia, where he led 50 personnel through process improvement and operational growth. In 2024, he joined Cox Automotive's Fleet Services Business Process Design and Improvement Team, that's a really long title, driving enterprise-wide efficiencies and process excellence. Later that year, he was selected to serve as a director of surveillance at Cox Communication, where he leads 3 teams of nearly 60 professionals responsible for maintaining network reliability and performance nationwide. And if you've ever seen that whole system run, that is a critical component to the whole operation. Sean remains passionate about leadership development and mentoring others through major life transitions, whether from the military to civilian life or into new professional challenges. He continues to apply the same principles that guided him in uniform, that guided most of us in uniform: teamwork, integrity, and unwavering commitment to mission success. Sean is married to his wife of 19 years, and together they have 3 children: Riley, who's 15, Cooper, 17, and Kellen, 9, who he says remains his greatest source of strength and pride. So please help me welcome to the stage, Sean Hunt.
I definitely appreciate that. And how cool is that title, right? Director of Surveillance. I never knew getting into the position I was in that the number one conversation piece I had associated with it was like Director of Surveillance, man. That's the coolest title out there. So huge thankful for that one. But yeah, hey, so good evening, everyone. Absolute honor to be here today with Vetlanta. An organization that truly helps bridge that gap in between military service into meaningful civilian careers afterwards. 24 months ago, I went to my first Vetlanta job fair out there at Mercedes-Benz. It was hugely instrumental as far as helping to guide me along the way and networking into my future opportunities, which included my opportunity coming to Cox. As mentioned in my bio, I did 20 years in uniform. 10 of those were enlisted as a Green Beret before I transitioned over to a medical officer, where I finished up 15 years total in special operations, along with numerous deployments. Today, I serve as the Director of Surveillance here at Cox Communications. It's absolutely a position that makes me feel like I truly landed where I was meant to be post-transition. When Vetlanta approached me, Peter Mahmood approached me and said, Sean, we'd love for you to help us with this Vetlanta event here at Cox. I jumped on the opportunity. I'm like, what do you need from me, Peter? Absolutely, I'll do that. He's like, Sean, just tell your transition story. And when I come into my transition story and you hear well, you're the Director of Surveillance, that's the coolest title ever, right? It doesn't account for the 21 months that were absolutely brutal in getting me there, right? Transition is not easy, it's difficult. My actual transition, it was not smooth. It was a humbling experience. It was uncomfortable, and at times I was just struggling on a day-to-day basis and just begging, why did I do this to myself? Why did I retire like I did? And so I think that really brings me into how does sharing my story help you all? So when I left the Army, I 100% failed to plan my transition, right? And you know what they say, if you're failing to plan, you're planning to fail. And a good portion of that, I take 100% ownership of that. Some of it was I like to think my command just loved me so much they didn't let me go. I actually did my change of command 2 weeks before my final out date to transition. And I even got counseled for turning in my equipment because I'm like, look, I'm leaving. I was medically retiring. I got counseled for turning it in too early. What happens if you deploy for World War III? It's not me, guy. I'm unfit for duty. I'm medically retiring. I'm out of here. But yeah, so 2 weeks and all my transition classes online after 20 years, right? And so I never had the opportunity to really think about what it was. When you sat through your transition classes or thought about what a transition looks like, I check every single block on what you're not supposed to do. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't know where I wanted to be. I didn't know the size of the organization I wanted to work for. I didn't know what position brought me happiness. I didn't even know what brought me happiness, right? I had so ingrained myself into the military that I was not conceptualizing what I wanted to be when I grew up at my ripe old age of 39, right? So I also overestimated my opportunities, right? I'd been successful the entire time I was in the military, right? Green Beret, combat diver, right? Became an officer school. I did all these great things while I was in the military, and I just made the assumption like, hey, my value is going to be so transparent. People are going to see that. The problem I'm going to have is not finding an opportunity. The problem is going to be turning down these opportunities and having those awkward conversations on, hey, thanks, but no thanks. I got something else going on. I thought the civilian world would understand my value. I thought they'd understand my accomplishments and they would translate directly. And again, I just never anticipated how difficult it would be and how much I would struggle through that. And so where that really ended up with me was I accepted, after going through and trying to apply and not receiving any calls back and not getting any interviews, I just took the first thing that was offered to me. And I knew it was a bad fit, but I also just didn't know who I was. And I suffered through this job, right? I knew within the first 90 days that job was going to be a challenge. I knew it didn't align with who I was as a person and where I wanted to be, and that's where I struggled the most. Not only that, it was a small company. There wasn't room to scale. There wasn't room to actually have strategy. It was an operation day to day. The owner didn't want to do anything more with that, and I came to accept that and understood that. Additionally, I found that all those values, the integrity, everything that you had inside of the military that drew you to your teammates and your camaraderie, I wasn't finding that at that organization. I realized that the organization's values were not in line with my own, right? And that does bring me to what I realized. I needed to reset my transition. I needed to go back to the drawing board and figure out what it is that I wanted to be when I grew up. I'd already retired. At this point, I'm almost 6 months into my post-retirement, and I don't know where I wanted to be. And so I sat myself down and remember sitting there going, if I was a soldier, what would I tell my soldier? What would I ask him as a commander? And that's what I ended up doing, is I started talking to myself like a soldier. And I was like, hey, where do you want to be? What are you doing? Who have you spoken to? What organization aligns with you? Where do your values lie? Where are your priorities? I started making this list. And the first thing I realized was I needed to network intentionally because I couldn't answer any of these questions, right? And so I started reaching out and engaging and networking with as many people as I could. I started sitting there, and if I found you on LinkedIn and you were a veteran, I contacted you. If you were an operations manager, I didn't know what that was, I contacted you. Like, hey, tell me about your job, right? Tell me what's going on with it. What do you do? What do you like about that job? What do you not like about that job? How's your organization, right? What's the values of your organization? What's the good, the bad, and the ugly of the organization? And then lastly, who else can I talk to, right? And so by asking all these things, I answered so many questions. I learned a lot about what it is that I didn't want to do, because I'd hear from some people, I'm like, that doesn't sound fun at all. That's not appealing to me, right? And I immediately move on. I talk to them about their organization. They're like, oh, our organization does this, right? And I'm like, oh, that's not where I want to be. And so the one thing that I did keep on coming back to is I realized where my values, my priorities were, is I wanted to work in a very large organization. I wanted to be part of something that I could be strategic with. I wanted to have big picture opportunities. I wanted to have opportunities to see multiple facets of the business, to grow, to pivot if I wanted to go try something else. And I realized that it was going to have to be at a very large organization, and that's actually what started driving me to Cox, right? And this is my shameless plug as I look at Michael Prey out there. Michael Prey's, he was one of those people I first contacted. And how does networking work on this level? To be very clear, I contacted one person over at Cox about a specific position. I told them my story. They sent me to their buddy. They're like, go talk to this military guy. You need to talk to him. He's going to help you out, right? I talked to that military guy. That military guy sent me to Michael, right? Michael was like, Sean, let's help you out, right? He started getting me, and I stayed engaged with him, right? As you're out here doing these networking events, stay engaged with the people that are helping you. Stay engaged with the people that are offering you support, and try to continue to engage with them and see what else they can offer you and what opportunities are presented, right? It takes time and it takes intentional networking in order to do that. So I was able to land my first position at Cox, as Grace is up here with Cox Auto. that's where I went. I went to Cox Auto. Now, some things I identified along the way is I had spent so much time leading troops that I really didn't know what I didn't know. And so I made the decision coming to Cox Auto that I knew Cox was a big organization. I knew there was going to be some opportunity here. And so I used that opportunity to become an individual contributor. I took a step back because I didn't want to have to worry about my team and the team's success. I wanted to worry about my own success. I wanted to worry about my own personal development. I wanted to see what I didn't know in order to professionally develop myself for that next opportunity. And that's where I sat there and really started moving forward with is driving that train as far as my own personal development, fill in the gaps that I realized that I need to improve my strengths on, improve my weaknesses in order to move forward. Those 6 months were tremendous, right? And it's only 6 months because back to Michael Prey was like, hey man, there's an opportunity. I think you're a great fit for it. Cox Communications was going through this huge change. He's like, they need leaders. Do you want to do that? Because Michael knew how I felt. I came over here to be an individual contributor. I'm like, I'm not going to lead anyone. It's not going to happen. And Michael comes to me like, hey man, like, how do you feel about it? And at that point, I had learned who I was as a person. I had learned what made me happiest. I had learned, hey, like one of the things that is the biggest draw for me is watching others succeed, right? Developing future leaders, developing teams to accomplish great things. Things that I didn't even realize that I had missed, I now identified as far as being an individual contributor in order to take it to the next level. The other thing that really afforded me was I now understood how to storytell. When I got out, I did not know how to translate my military experiences into the civilian world, right? Special Forces guy, hey, there's not a lot of Special Forces missions that are one-for-one transition into like the civilian marketplace, right? Like, yeah, I did a bunch of high-value stuff downrange. I don't do that anymore, right? It doesn't translate easy, but now I can storytell that. And that was one of the greatest outcomes, that success stories I was able to get going on it. So that's my other piece of advice to you as veterans. Learn to tell your story. Get that experience. When you network and they start sharing stories with you, start conceptualizing, how does my stories of my military success, how can I correlate that to what's going on in the civilian world? How do I understand logistics? How do I understand acquisitions? How do I understand mergers? How do I understand development of teams? Project management. Like, these are all things that we have a lot of experience across the military that helps you get to that next level. So that did bring me into my current position where I felt the most success. But if you were listening to my story, one of the things that happened the most is use your veterans. Use your veterans, right? The term I've used it, the best way I've summarized this is I use the lost puppy dog story, right? So as I was networking, I was engaging with my fellow veterans, because that was always the first one I went to. I would go like, hey, we're all veterans in here. And so one of the things that is ingrained with us is helping our peers, helping our juniors, developing them to be successful for the future. And so I 100% use that to my advantage. And I would call up these veterans. I'd be like, hey man, you've had so much success in that position. How did you do it? I'm struggling. Will you help me? And I'm telling you, it's like a 95% success rate, right? Like, veterans are out there, they want to help one another. And it was great, right? Because they kept on dragging me along. And again, if you were a positive force and you were dragging me along, hey, like, help me out, help me understand that. So that's what I do. So veterans, when you're here today, think about these big things, right? Network intentionally. Network intentionally, build out that network, and stay engaged. Do not look at the network that you build if you have one conversation to simply equal success into where you want to be in the future, right? Stay engaged with them, especially the people who are showing you that they want to help you, that they want to be successful. Learn to tell your story. Learn to translate your military experiences into the civilian marketplace. Trust me, they're out there, right? I could tell military stories all day long into a civilian environment and draw one-for-one correlation, right? But it takes practice, it takes conversation, and the better you can do that, the sooner you can do that, the quicker civilian leaders can understand what value you bring to the organization. And as I said, lean on your veteran squad, right? I continue to say that if I could have a bunch of veterans working for me, I would hire them in a heartbeat, right? I know what they've been through. I know what their work ethic is. I know how to get them motivated and moving in a great direction. There's nothing I'd love more than have veterans on my team. For our leaders that are out there, right? You have to understand veterans are a huge part of our organization and the value that they bring to our teams. right? You're talking about skills that are developed that are extremely expensive to develop, right? Leadership. Leadership is ingrained with our veteran community from day one. If you're not in charge of someone within 2 years, like, man, I don't know what's going on with you, because everyone's got a bad buddy that they're in charge of, that they're always trying to drag out, right? The good, the bad, and the different. Everyone's always in charge of a squad, a team, 4 people. Like, it just continues to grow throughout what's going on. Our veterans are rapid problem solvers. How often did you find yourself as a veteran as a one of one trying to solve whatever problem is that you're responsible for, right? You get limited guidance from your commander, and the expectation is that you figure it out and move forward, right? We operate with very ambiguous guidance in order to be successful. That's the other thing, is we are mission driven. We're not even individually driven. We're organizational driven. We want to see the organization succeed. We want to see how we can improve the organization. We're actually resilient. The amount of pressure that we operate off of, whether it's a training activity, a training event, or even a deployment, we handle pressure very well, right? We should be leaned on for the most difficult problems. My boss loves to look at me like, I'm gonna be honest, network operations today, burning to the ground, right? I got events all over the United States. My boss is looking at me, he's like, how are we doing? I'm like, we're fine. Right? He's like, it doesn't look good. I was like, no, we're good, man. We got all the teams working at it. Like, I'm calm as a cucumber. I told him, I was like, you wanna know what stresses me out? When you start asking me to do administrative functions, right? Like, I don't want to write the report. I don't want to have to answer to the leader. Just leave me alone, man. The problem solved. You go do that stuff. I'll handle the emergency. I'll handle the fire. Lastly, loyalty and coachability, right? Like, our veterans are coachable. I don't know about you guys, but I showed up to plenty of duty assignments where, like, hey, you know that job that we brought you here to do? Not going to do that. Here's this completely different additional duty that you got to figure out. I don't even know how to do it yet. Yeah, here's the regulation manual. Go figure it out and make sure we're in compliance. Right? And the other thing is, we're loyal. We're talking about people who have dedicated their life to serving an organization, to serving something higher than themselves, right? Why did I leave that first job? I realized they weren't loyal to me, and I wasn't gonna be loyal to them. It wasn't exciting. Why do I love my job now? Right? Because I get to be loyal to Cox. Every single decision I make today supports us, supports our leaders, supports our customers, supports our employees. And I love that feeling every single day when I wake up. And so lastly, like, how do we continue to retain these veterans? Challenge them, right? As for me, I was always driven. What's the next step? What's the next level? Where else can I succeed? Where else can I improve the organization? If I'm bored, it's because I'm not being challenged, right? You want to keep people happy? Keep them engaged, especially veterans. We're like dogs, man. Like, you give us a new stick and we're like, oh yeah, give me that thing. Like, let's go chase it, right? That's where we want to be. Right, so hey, in closing today, take advantage of what's going on out there. We got so many people out there, so many good networking opportunities. If you're a veteran, make sure you're engaging, make sure you're networking. Learn to storytell, take this opportunity to practice. Lean on your veteran community to help you with that. When I was here 2 years ago, right, and I was out there talking to Brandon, I can't see, there you're Brandon, right? I was out there, I was talking to Hajoka with Cowan Supply, I talked to Peter Mahmood with Cox, I talked to some IT professionals, cybersecurity people. Stay engaged with them, leaders. Understand that value that's there. Sometimes veterans don't know how to storytell. Sometimes it takes us asking those questions in order to understand how they align into our world. But understand, they'll figure it out, man. They're gonna get going on it. And so remember, as you're out there today, hey guys, this is about you. This is about our veterans. You guys have served your community, you've served your country. You did something that 94% of the rest of America doesn't want to do, right? And that's something that shouldn't be taken for granted. And you should be realized every single person that's here today is here to help you. And so reap the benefits, reap this opportunity, utilize it to propel yourself forward. And again, it's been an honor to serve in the uniform. It's an honor to serve alongside you. If you guys need anything, reach out, engage with me. I'm always willing to help, right? And all you got to do is ask. So.